This land isn't just in your blood. It's under your fingernails and worn with pride. It's not a job. It's your livelihood. Here, overtime is all the time. But you wouldn't have it any other way. It's written into your DNA. It's what you thrive on. And while farming will never be easy, we can make it better. Introducing the Pioneer 100 series. Meaningfully different canola hybrids.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Of course, it's Thursday, which means it's the Farmer Rapid Fire, which is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Pioneer 100 series. It's the highest yielding Pioneer brand canola hybrids ever, people. This isn't just better canola. It's different canola. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more. Thank you so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And of course, also shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Looking forward to the Farmer Rapid Fire here today. We've got some some wily veterans of the show. We got Phil Shaw coming out of Dresden, Ontario. Ryan Barrett is in Kensington, PEI. John Kowalchuk is in Trochu, Alberta. Daryl Fransoo is in Glaslyn, Saskatchewan. And we're also be joined by Pioneer's Mike Weir. He is coming out of Manitoba. So if you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. You do not need to wait to be on the Farmer Rapid Fire to provide your feedback. You can do that by calling that number, 855-776-6147. You dial the number, you press the number 2, and you leave me a voicemail. And we start off this week's Farmer Rapid Fire in Dresden, Ontario, and we're talking to Phil Shaw. Phil, how are we doing?
Pretty good. How are you, Shaun?
Oh, man, I'm doing pretty good. What's happening on the farm this week?
Well, everybody around here is preparing to harvest soybeans. There hasn't been a lot of soybeans off yet this year because at this part of the province in the deep southwest of Ontario, we've had normal precipitation all year. We've had very good crops, some of the best in the province down here. So a lot of the harvest activity that you've seen in Ontario is drought-induced. It's come early. But down in this end of the province, it really hasn't started yet. And like, for instance, myself, I think harvest is still 10 days away. And now we're getting wet weather, and so that'll delay anybody that is ready to go now, and it'll be a few more days. But so I have been preparing to harvest, and that's like preparing to plant.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier once you get to do it.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's what's been going on this week.
What's kind of your expectation on those soybeans?
Oh, they're good. In this part of the province, well, maybe mine won't be as good as others because I had a lot of replanting to do this past spring. I had a really hard time trying to get soybeans above the ground this spring, and we had a lot of heavy rain and a lot of replanting. But since then, we've had very good weather down here. Yeah. And so the soybeans are much better than my expectations when I left them in June. And corn is going to be very good in the deep southwest of Ontario, like very good. I'm sure it'll average in this area over 200 bushels per acre, and it's going to be quite good, which is quite a bit different than the rest of Ontario where they faced a lot of drought. So when I get to it, which will maybe be in a week's time or a little bit more, hopefully we'll have kind weather in October, and hopefully that'll make things go good. I'm hoping anyway. You never know.
Yeah, on Wednesday's show we had Scott Metzger on, who's a farmer from Ohio, and he was talking about how much rain they had and all the replanting they had to do. It kind of sounds a little bit similar to your story.
Very close to Ohio, and that was a story I had in the spring. I just couldn't get anything above ground, I'd plant it and get inundated with water. And finally, around the 20th of June, just threw the towel in because I just keep getting hit by heavy rain. But since then, the weather's been hot, and we've had adequate moisture. I know in the rest of Ontario, the big yield robber this year has been lack of moisture, but it's been fine that way down here in the deep southwest in Essex and Chatham-Kent and parts of Lambton County. So hoping for good things.
Yeah. Any other fall projects you want to get done before snow starts to fly?
Not particularly. Maybe you should talk to the younger guys for those projects that are ongoing. I'm just trying to get to the finish line this year, so we'll hope for good things.
How's the crop marketing been? What have you got? Do you have any insights to give us there? I know you're a close follower of it.
Well, it's interesting. There's really been little opportunity to price crops, especially this past summer. People were complaining about wheat prices, but really there was very little opportunity to capture any good market prices on the wheat. And with regard to corn and soybeans, what I've really found interesting over the last week or two is that latest USDA report that came out with huge numbers, but the market has been somewhat more resilient the last little while, much more than I expected, and especially in corn, because those numbers are huge, and you've even got some of the speculators now going net long on corn. So, and in Ontario, as you surely know, Ontario and Quebec, we ran out of old crop corn this year, and so it was really a seller's market for old crop corn, and still is here in Ontario. You had corn being sold for $7 a bushel plus this late summer in Ontario and Quebec. So anybody that has that still has certainly had an opportunity. But really, if you think of over the last year, big supply has been winning, and there's been few opportunities to sell these crops at the prices we would really like. So hopefully there's good things in the future on that as well.
Yeah, we were having an internal content meeting earlier today, and we were just talking about how there's so much discussion about farm profitability. There's concern. Obviously, that's a concern on the prairies. That's a concern in central and eastern Canada, and for sure, it's a big time concern in the Midwest and through the South into the Delta. So it's it just seems like the North American farmer right now, there's just input prices are high, commodity prices are lower than we would like them to be, and profitability is a problem.
Yeah, I listen to your commentary constantly. I listen to podcast form usually, and I think every farmer knows, at least in Ontario and Quebec, that we're expecting the American farmer to get bailed out, right? And we're expecting government payments to come in, and that's not going to be the same here in Ontario and Quebec. So that reality is what it is. There's one redeeming factor: it's the Canadian dollar at 72 cents. That really helps our Ontario and Quebec cash prices for grain. If it was 92 cents, I can't imagine the problems we might have in Ontario farm country. But I listen to your commentary all the time. I'm aware of the profitability concerns. I'm an older guy, so I go back to the 80s when we had 23% interest rates and farm asset values crashing. And we know that's a one-time thing. I don't ever anticipate that happening again, but I've seen a lot of this before. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And and Scott Metzger mentions it on Wednesday's show about the reality is a lot of that money, if it does flow to the farmer in the U.S., it doesn't stay in their pocket, right? It goes to the bank to pay off some loans. It goes to the local hardware store. It goes to the machinery dealership. A lot of it doesn't end up in the piggy bank, so to speak.
And the classic agricultural economics stance on that, it gets recapitalized into farm assets, right?
Yeah.
Typically land, and it's just kind of a long story, but you and I have seen it over the past few years, even during the first Trump administration, the amount of money that went into that was sent out to the American Midwest and places like that. And, I'm fully expecting it again. And, it's just tough when you live about 70 kilometers from the border down here and you see that happening. But it is what it is, and we'll just have to find a way.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, before I let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts. I was in a couple social media threads last week where we were talking about it. PMRA looking at potentially banning over-the-top use of dicamba.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was quite interested in that. Well, here in the deep southwestern Ontario, we have dicamba tolerant soybeans that you can spray over. But for the most part, we have not had the problems that they've had in the United States, where, as you know, they've had terrible things happen where people get fighting over that. But when you have, I made mention too on one of my comments, I might have made it on one of your Real Agricultural blogs, that, sometimes I spray soybeans between tomatoes and non-GMO soybeans or something like that. And anybody that does that here, frankly, it's not done here, even though it's legal. You can do it because it's just not smart, right? Because you're going to have problems, huge issues with regard to drift. And I've heard you report about the problems they've had in the United States with that. So, to a large extent here, the farmers regulate themselves with regard to that. And typically they do not spray it when there's crops like that around. On social media, I've made a few comments with regard to the PMRA and dicamba, and I've been taken to task by some Western Canadian producers. But what I was trying to get at when I was on social media was sometimes just because you can use a product like that doesn't necessarily mean you should. Like, for instance, I have all kinds of Roundup resistant weeds here in the deep southwestern Ontario. This is where it started. I got about 4 or 5 of them. But I don't go to the nuclear option to try to control them. I mean, there's different things that you can do, whether it's by mechanical means or crop rotations, or there's a whole bunch of different things you can try without going to a dicamba-based product. And sometimes I've had that discussion with my Western Canadian friends, and it's hard in social media to actually bring out the nuances of what I mean. But, like, for instance, what we do here in the deep southwestern Ontario, we'll try different things and not necessarily try a Roundup-resistant weed try to kill it with a dicamba product like that. And I've sprayed lots of dicamba in my life all throughout the years. This might be the fly getting hit with a sledgehammer the PMRA is doing, but there's a lot of differences between how dicamba is used, for instance, in rural Manitoba versus the deep southwestern Ontario, where we've got all kinds of tomatoes and cucumbers and all kinds of things that can be taken out. Yeah. So, and also too, you can get into the philosophical issue. Do you really need dicamba tolerant soybeans? I would argue you don't, right? But other people would argue you do.
Yeah, Phil, it's definitely an issue where I've heard from different pieces, sections of the audience. It's not just Manitoba versus Ontario. Even within those jurisdictions, some pretty, strong feelings amongst growers. This is an interesting one that's definitely being debated, and we'll see what happens in the consultation period between now and November 1st. Hey, Phil, I got to hop here, but thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire.
Okay, go Jays there, Shaun.
That's right. Well, I know you're a Tigers fan, so we'll partially cheer for the Tigers as well until they all meet up in the ALCS. We'll be right back on Real Ag Radio for the rest of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Time for a product spotlight with Jared Vaness, National Technical Service Manager with BASF Canada. We're going to talk about bringing to the market Liberty Amp. How did you identify the need?
When I started my career, 2001, we were looking at improving Liberty. This has been a need and an ask from the market for nearing 25, 26 years. It's a bulky product today, Liberty 150 is. There was always a need or an ask to get it more concentrated, but not lose efficacy. We finally got there in time for the 2026 field season. What we continually ran into and why it took as long as it did is we will not sacrifice on efficacy. At the same time, it's going to be 20% higher in concentration and maintain that superior weed control for consistency and dependability in the field, which is critical. Essentially, get more performance per drop. You reduce the number of totes and drums, and it helps from that logistical standpoint.
If somebody wants more information on the launch of Liberty Amp, where do they go?
agsolutions.ca.
Important update from FMC. Precision Pack DB878 Pro herbicide is now registered for use in front of oats, along with spring wheat, durum, winter wheat, and barley. DB878 Pro herbicide delivers proven kochia control, including herbicide-resistant biotypes, plus extended control of cleavers, dandelion, narrow-leaved hawksbeard, and volunteer canola. And with Precision Pack herbicide customization, you get the acres you need. No leftovers, no wasted time. See your local participating retailer today.
Up next on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Let's go to the island. We're going to PEI, and we're in Kensington, and we're talking to Ryan Barrett. Hey, Ryan, how are we doing?
Great, Shaun. How are you?
Pretty good. Okay, how are the crops looking out there on the island?
Oh, not great. We've had a very, very dry summer.
Yeah.
Since Canada Day, we've only had about 3.5 inches of rain.
Oh, that is well below average.
Well, normally we'd have about 10. So, and then some of that came like all at once, and some of that didn't soak in. Some of that just ran off because the ground was dry and wasn't able to absorb it. So, it's been incredibly dry most of the season. A lot of stuff kind of held on through July. I'm suffering a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. And then, we just kept thinking, well, it's got to rain some time, and then it just never did. And so the majority of the island has been really dry for the entire summer. And now it's, for most stuff, it's too late to do anything. So most of the potatoes are dead or close to it, and we're going to see significant yield reductions on potatoes, and we're going to see some quality issues too, likely on certain varieties with scab and with size profile not being good enough and that sort of thing. We're going to the corn. We're at the corn silage at home at the home farm, and corn silage turned off probably better than we expected, but then we've got most of our corn silage on some of the home acres close to the farm, close to the barn, higher organic matter fields, fields that get manure regularly, so better able to buffer some dry weather. So they're not, yield and quality is not as bad there, but most of our grain corn's away from the home farm, and we're expecting it to be down. I imagine it'll be down 20% or so, 20-25%. My guess. We probably won't be harvesting it for another 2 or 3 weeks anyway. Grain was, like, the winter wheat was good. Like, we had a really big winter wheat yield, but it set its yield, or it banked its yield early when there was still some moisture around in June. So, we had a big, better than average winter wheat crop, big straw crop. Barley crop was probably above average, but the stuff that bulks in August and September, that's the stuff that's bad. So corn yield's going to be down. I'm hearing soybean yields of, I don't grow any soybeans, but I'm hearing people telling me like half a ton to the acre on soybeans when they usually would get 1.25 tons, So I think, there's going to be some hurt around on crops this year.
That sounds disastrous. Like, really, like you've painted, and I'm not accurately so, but you've painted a pretty brutal picture there for farmers there on the island this year.
Yeah, no, it's not great. There's going to be a lot of people happy, well, not happy, but fortunate to have crop insurance, and nobody makes money on crop insurance, but at least you can pay the bills on crop insurance. But and we have a fairly good adoption rate on crop insurance at PEI. I'd say kudos to our provincial government. We have one of the better crop insurance programs in Canada, I think. It has fairly high adoption rate, but it's probably going to be under stress this year too, I would say. It's just like, there's a couple pockets of the island that got a little bit more rain. The very western end of Prince County, like the very western end of the province, got an extra maybe 2 inches of rain that everybody else didn't get. And so the crops are a little better in the west. There's a couple places here and there where it's a little bit better, but, there's definitely fields. I've been out, I just started doing some of my trial digging for some of my research trials last week and this week. And, I was in a field yesterday or no, the day before yesterday digging, and, there's half as much of a yield there as there should be, in that specific trial field. So it's just, it's going to be very frustrating for folks, and it's going to be challenging for some of the local, like for filling the local market and that sort of thing. So, it's going to be a challenge, and I mean we're not alone in it either. Like the whole Maritimes is really dry. The Annapolis Valley over in Nova Scotia may be even drier than us. I know multiple people over there that they've basically insurance told them don't even bother trying to harvest the corn. It's not really harvestable, and it's not even worth doing for silage because it's got fusarium toxins and things. So there's out and out crop failures in some crops over there. The blueberry crop, which is a big crop for PEI, and in the Maritimes, the wild blueberry crop, I've heard it's down 25-30% for sure this year. So there's unfortunately lots of hurt to go around.
Do you think for PEI and maybe the rest of the maritime area, there's going to be a call for additional government help through disaster relief, something like that?
I'm not sure. Like the ag recovery program is usually around like additional costs associated with like a disaster. And so like if there's like, I know when ag recovery was accessed in the past, it was usually around like a hurricane or around like an exceedingly wet fall that meant, extra costs at harvest and things like that. It's not really it doesn't really cover things like, decline, less yield, that it's not going to cost me more to dig it, or it's not going to cost me more to harvest it, but it's just going to be less of it. So, they'll hopefully people have insurance and hopefully have good insurance margins, and also hopefully things like agri-stability will help. There might, whether or not there's flexibility or there's additional things to be done on the agri-stability point, that's far from my area of expertise. I'm more of an agronomist and less of an economist, but I'm sure there's probably some discussions to be held. And I know in our industry, there's going to be more people looking at irrigation. There's going to be more people looking at new, additional things they can do to build the resiliency of their soils and to carry over more moisture. But you can have all the organic matter in the world. If it doesn't rain for 2 months, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well,
so
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it'll carry you an extra week or 2 weeks, but it won't carry you 2 months.
So just to quickly wrap up here, is there appetite in PEI to expand irrigation? I
think there is with, in certain commodities and in certain areas, it's trying to find ways to do so in an economical way, in a way that makes sense. It's awful capital intensive, like everything in agriculture these days. So, and we all, there are permits and there's regulations around accessing irrigation. So you have to go through that process. And so it's not just, I flip a switch tomorrow and start landing pivots in the yard. There's more to it than that. But, I definitely think it's something that's going to get a long look from a lot of producers this winter.
Yeah. Well, hey, Ryan, I wish it's great to chat with you. I wish you had better news to share. Really thinking of all the producers out there that going through a really, really tough cycle here when it comes to production and rain, lack thereof the rain. So, but I appreciate you being here on the Farmer Rapid Fire today.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll be right back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Anniversaries are a time of reflection, celebration, and connection. 10 years ago, G3 set out with a vision to build something better for Canadian grain farmers. And you joined us on that journey to launch a new national network. Thank you for the relationships that made it possible. A decade of growth, a decade of connections, and more in decades to come. Connect with your farm business representative or find your closest elevator at g3smarter.ca.
We have the financial tool you're looking for this harvest. An APP cash advance from Canadian Canola Growers Association offers short-term farm financing that gives you the flexibility to sell your inventory when the time and price are best for you. Borrow at a low interest rate of 0.25% below prime with your first $250,000 interest-free. Apply on over 50 commodities. Call our experienced team or visit ccga.ca. Cash advances are made under the Government of Canada's Advance Payments Program.
Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today. Up next, the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, is going to Trochu, Alberta, and we're talking to John Kowalchuk. John, how are we doing?
Really good, Shaun. How about you?
Pretty good. Okay, hey, what's happening on the farm this week?
Actually, I'm in kind of cleanup mode right now, so it's kind of nice. Weather's been good, so I'm able to do some fall work and get some equipment cleaned up and ready to put to bed for winter.
Harvest is all wrapped up. She's complete, all finished.
Yes, thankfully. Got her done. It was a good run. We had a really good weather this year for harvest. It was nice and warm and pretty consecutive days, like very, very few down days this year with no weather delays, and just everything kind of clicked along pretty good. I was actually surprised there wasn't more breakdowns and down days. But it's nice to just whiz through it and get her done.
Are you feeling happy about the results, or how would you describe them?
Yes, I'm very happy with the results, especially the cereals. They seem to really like the weather this year. Yes, when we get lots of rain, I guess we can grow a crop in Central Alberta, which is amazing because the last few years we sure haven't been getting the rainfall, and it's shown in our yields. But this year it's been really good. So.
Yeah, we were just talking to Ryan Barrett from PEI. They've had the opposite. They've had drought, no rain, hardly any since July 1st, like only 3 inches, which is significantly below the average. Again, it proves, John, you can do all the things in your control, but if Mother Nature comes through, it can really push you across the finish line.
Yes, it sure can. Yeah, some years you think you did everything right, and you're just like, okay, I got everything set up so nice, and then boom, you get a hot spell during flowering, or you get a lack of rainfall when you need it, and it can be all the difference of make or break, eh? So
yeah. Well, and one of the things we saw this year, for sure in Alberta, a little bit cooler summer, right? Like we got some rain, but we probably had more plus 30 Celsius days in September than we had in July, and that didn't hurt our yields either.
No, and it made for a good harvest as far as getting the crop off, but maybe not so good at getting it in really good condition going into bins, because usually 30-degree grain or 30-degree days can translate into 35-degree grain going into bins. So definitely monitoring bins right now. I look at my app quite often and watch the temps on the bins, but we're not used to that kind of heat during harvest. So we've had warm grain going in, but not when you start putting 35 Celsius grain away, right? So you really got to watch.
What kind of, so you've got a monitoring system. What are you using?
Yeah, so I have the cable system. So I got like the bin sense. So is what I'm using from the, and it's been really good. Like having the cables in all the bins. I had the guys out this year and put in a bunch of cables, and I got it set up on an app, so I'm able to monitor it. So even last weekend, I was actually down in Lethbridge watching my daughter play ball, university softball down there. So I was down there and I was able to, look at the bins. Oh, okay, no, that canola is it's still good. So, that peace of mind thing, right? Because otherwise you'd be thinking about, okay, when I get home on Monday, do I need to make sure I turn that bin? So all those things, it's kind of just a peace of mind thing for sure.
Okay, well, sidebar here. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you were in Lethbridge and you didn't call me to go for a pint of beer, John?
I should have. I wasn't sure if you were around because you like following ball too. So
John, I was around. We lined up perfectly. This was a perfect opportunity. Well, there you go. You got some beautiful weather.
I missed out.
Yeah, it was beautiful last Saturday for sure. So did you win?
They won some and lost some. It's pretty competitive at that university level. So U of L beat them in the final game by 1 point. So Lethbridge has got a tough ball team there too. We were out in Coaldale at the Diamonds there.
Oh yeah. So. Okay, good. Yeah, the quads. Yeah. Well, University of Lethbridge, a fine institution.
Yeah, it is. Yes. Yeah. My daughter plays for Mount Royal, so it's Mount Royal's a pretty fine institution too.
Oh, I like it. Okay, so fall projects. What do you got? What are you trying to accomplish here before the snow starts to fly?
Well, today it's getting the Super Bs ready to haul grain once the elevators get some cars. So I'm working on it right now, getting the trailers kind of cleaned up and going through some of the things during harvest that kind of got put to the side as far as repairs like electrical, and some of the hoppers needed a little bit of TLC so that they open properly and a few of those things. So I'm working on that today. And then I also purchased a combo trailer. It's kind of like a storage trailer on the front and then on the back is a flat deck. And I'm going to get that set up for next year for a service trailer with tanks and different things on it.
Oh,
so
nice.
Been getting stuff kind of in place for that. For once it gets cooler, I can back that into the shop and start getting that set up for next year. And for sure we'll have a water tank on it, 300 or 400 gallons of water with a fire hose and stuff, because definitely this year taught us that it can be hot and dry during harvest. And we've had some neighbors have some fires, and I had a close call with a semi, had a little fire in it, but got it put out with a fire extinguisher. So I'm kind of going to get it geared up so that I can have some water out in the field too. So, when we complete harvest, and this is a little bit of a difference between the prairies and say if you're in the corn and bean belt, right? So where you could be harvesting corn at Christmas time. In the prairies, you finish harvest, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan. You can be done here the end of September, and there can be another, I don't know. Well, it could be 1 week, but we could have a month and a half of some nice weather here. And you can get as many things done as you can. It kind of alleviates some of the pressure on some of the winter work, but also especially that spring work, right? You can move into 26 planting and seeding with maybe a little bit more, just being a little bit more prepared. For sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I find a year like this when we've had really good weather and that I feel a lot better going into winter instead of, well, last year I had some issues with my heart there, so I had to go in for surgery right after harvest. So it was almost, we got done harvesting and I just put everything away. I didn't even look at anything, the tractor, because the 4-wheel drive gets used during harvest, and then in the spring you need it. Well, come this spring, I'm like, I got all this stuff I need to get done, because I basically just threw everything into storage and walked away at that point. And I had 2.5 months where I couldn't do anything. So by then it's Christmas and you're not starting a project in Christmas, and I don't really have a big enough shop. So definitely this year I'm feeling a lot more in control and a lot more confident going into next spring.
You got to watch some of these RealAg shop episodes we've been doing with Princess Auto. You get some ideas, maybe a new shop's in order for you, John.
Oh, I've been watching them for sure. If I were younger, I would have put up a shop this year, but I'm thinking, I'm getting close to the end. There's no use me putting up a shop at this point in my life. So it would be awesome though.
I saw you in Egg in Motion. You don't look a day over 35.
Well, some days I feel that way, but some days I feel my age. So it depends on the day.
You and me both. That's no question about that. With the bad knees and bad back and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, John, thanks for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. I'm glad to hear you had some awesome yields, and good luck with some of your fall work, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Shaun.
Okay, we'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right after this quick break. Is your family farm's future uncertain? Silence might be the biggest risk of all. Discover how open conversations and gradual planning can secure your legacy and empower the next generation. Don't wait. Start the dialogue today. Learn more and download a transition planning checklist, your guide to farm succession planning at fcc.ca/knowledge.
Whether you're running a farm operation, in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, operating a company in agri-food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag and food together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
Up next, the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Let's go to Glaslyn, Saskatchewan. We're talking Daryl Fransoo. Daryl, how are we making out?
Doing well, Shaun. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, what's happened on the farm this week?
We wrapped up harvest yesterday, so that's exciting.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. We often up here we don't get done in September, so this is the first time I remember in a long, long time.
Okay, so how are the crops?
The wheat was really poor. We were droughted out here. We were in like the 3-inch of rain category. The canola surprised us. It was still mediocre, but better than I thought it would be. It's quite the amazing crop, actually.
Yeah, last year it kind of disappointed us, right? It sort of left us a little bit at the altar. And this year, honestly, I've been hearing from most producers on the show here that say, you know what, the canola did pretty good.
Yeah, for the amount of rain that we got, it definitely surprised us.
Okay, just if we could sort out some of the trade issues, that would make us feel a bit better when it comes to that canola, right?
Yeah, it's sure a tough one to just sit back and watch right now. It seems like we're not making any headway with China. It seems like we struggle to do two things at once. We talk about diversifying markets, which is great, but we can diversify markets and fix the trade issues at the same time. But it doesn't seem like we have a will to do that right now.
Yeah, definitely some challenges. I know that I think it was yesterday that or 2 days ago that Prime Minister Carney had a meeting with the Chinese premier. So that's I guess that's a positive step. And agriculture was mentioned, so that I guess that is a positive as well.
Yeah, I guess we got to remember it's a little more complicated than just we get rid of this, you get rid of that. Unfortunately, I'm glad he's finally meeting with the higher up people in China, so that's a positive step.
Yeah.
I just hope that the canola and the pea issue here gets solved, because I know when it was with Australia, it took years and years with barley, I believe, there in canola, and
yeah.
I don't want to see that. That hurts us, right?
Yeah, well, Wednesday's show of RealAg Radio, we had Scott Metzger on from the American Soybean Association. He's a farmer from Ohio, and they're dealing with the same kind of thing. China's not buying U.S. soybeans, so it kind of feels like we're kind of all in this lot sort of together here right now.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We're doing what we can do on the lobby side as farmer lobbyists. We're trying, man, but it's frustrating. It's been a tough decade to do what we do.
Yeah. So Daryl, you've been heavily involved with the wheat growers over the years, and currently chair, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So you visited with your share of politicians on different sides of the aisle. I guess what's the one thing about doing some of those lobbying efforts that maybe if a farmer hasn't done that before, they've never participated in those kind of Ottawa trips, can you shed some light on what's something that maybe they may not know about that's involved in that?
there is a lot of work that goes on. There's a lot of good people that are really trying their best. When you have I won't speak to the Carney government because it's a brand new government. But when you have 10 years of the Trudeau government, to stay in the game as a lobbyist or lobbying on behalf of farmers, I have to give props to the guys that did it. It was like going in there banging your head against the wall day after day after day. But somebody had to do it. You had to try. And we didn't have too many wins. We slowed some things down, but there's a lot of good people trying to do good work. We got the grain growers in Ottawa right now, and Kyle Larkin's doing a fantastic job. Maybe there's not the wins, but I don't think the average person realizes what didn't happen or what hasn't happened because we have people like that in Ottawa working on our behalf.
Yeah, well put. Any big fall projects on the farm now that you're wrapped up harvest here in late September?
Nothing too exciting. Our stubble's not very thick, so we're just going to leave it stand. No harrowing. Hopefully we can catch some snow. I know, and I've talked to a lot of farmers, the subsoil moisture really held the canola going, and I think that's where a lot of the yield came from. So we're going to try to catch as much snow as we can. But besides that, change some oils, clean some things up, and get ready for winter, I guess.
Are you a put the equipment away for the winter in pristine condition kind of guy?
Yeah, well, normally we're up against the snow in the fall, right? So it's snowing the day we're putting stuff away, so we're just getting stuff away. But this year we got a little more time, so we're gonna, try to get ahead of the game instead of just throwing stuff away.
Yeah, exactly. Fall weed control, will you do that this fall?
Most of it gets a shot of something. We did have some late rain, so there is a little bit of stuff growing, but I've been on top of most of it. Our wheat gets pre-harvested, so that's done. The canola stubble's pretty clean, but we'll hit some of it.
Yeah, and with it being a little bit dry in your area, you don't maybe have that weed growth, right?
No, yeah, that's right. We did have some late rains that really helped the canola fill, but all in all, the fields are pretty clean. There's some regrowth on some of the stuff that really struggled, and I've hit some of that already. So. Okay.
Have you started to work at all on the 26 crop plan at all, or is that just way too out in front of us?
We stick pretty close to our rotation. I don't think there's going to be many changes. We're really limited up here in the Northwest on what we can grow. So, it's a big canola and cereal region. Not much changes year to year.
Yeah. Any peas in the rotation?
We haven't grown peas for quite a few years. We grew a lot of peas back in the day when, the family-owned Parkland Pulse. So we marketed a lot of pulses, mainly yellow peas through them. But we got a Phanomyces so bad that we really haven't grown many in about a decade.
Yeah, that Phanomyces really does limit a lot of the acre. If you look at the Alberta, Saskatchewan, down into North Dakota, Montana, like it is really a threat to the pulse acre.
It is, and I know there's some good work going on in breeding, but they're not quite there. Hopefully they get there sooner rather than later. That kind of stuff takes time, unfortunately. But the other thing is with the tariffs on peas, I know not many crops are overly profitable right now, but $6-7 yellow peas are pretty hard to pencil out. Yeah.
We were talking earlier with Phil Shaw from Southwestern Ontario about farm profitability. And kind of everybody's in a bit of a different situation, but overall, a lot of concern about farm profitability here in 25 and on the forecast in 26.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, because of what I do, I kind of revert to government policy, and we need some policy that helps us be competitive. It seems like everything is going against us, and we have a government that just keeps putting more roadblocks in place. So that's kind of one place I defer to that we could get some work done on. And, Prime Minister Carney is saying some of the right things, so I'm hopeful that, some things change in our direction.
What would you like to see them do, Daryl? If Carney phones you this afternoon and says, "Okay, Daryl, I heard you on RealAg Radio. We need to take action." What would you tell them to do?
There's an argument of deficit spending, and we're going to be there, right? As a country, we're spending lots of money, so let's spend that in the right places. Trade infrastructure. Trade infrastructure is a big one that could definitely help us. And I've wrote about the Port of Vancouver. That's our outlet to the world. let's spend the money in the right places. If we're going to spend the money, let's spend it in the right places. Another one is, PMRA. They didn't come out with their decision. They came out with consultation on dicamba. There's some big problems with PMRA. Let's be honest. It takes years and years and years and years for things to get passed through, and I think there's some streamlining that could happen there, and there's maybe we should be looking at a competitive lens instead of just safety. It's one of those things where we can do more than one thing at once. We can be safe and competitive, but we seem to not want to look at that competitive side of things. Well, those are a couple things off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, Daryl, thanks so much for joining us here today for the Farmer Rapid Fire.
For sure. Take care, Shaun.
Hey, we'll be back with more. We're going to go back to Manitoba. We got Mike Weir from Pioneer standing by. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Ever hear that good things come to those who wait? Well, we think it's more like great rewards come to those who book their Invigor hybrid canola early. Through the Invigor Book and Buy Grower Program, you could earn a $30 per bag rebate when you book all your Invigor needs by November 14th. Speak with your local retailer about eligible hybrids. Terms and conditions apply. Book early. Come out ahead.
Dairy producers wanted for the first American Dairy Expo, November 5th and 6th at the Champlain Valley Exposition in Vermont. Grab a free breakfast, tour the 200 Company Dairy Innovation Trade Show, meet Olympian and dairy producer El St. Pierre, and take in the Dairy Delivers classroom. November 5th is Dairy Fest at 4 p.m., featuring a massive dairy buffet, live entertainment, and industry networking. Full details, discount coupon, and pre-expo tickets available at AmericanDairyExpo.com.
Well, let's continue the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, and we're going to Manitoba. We're talking to Pioneer agronomist Mike Weir. Hey, Mike, how are we doing?
Good. How are you?
I mean, I'm doing pretty good. So, what's happening? What are you up to this week?
This week is we're kind of in the middle of our tailgate meetings, or a lot of our grower meetings we like to do with our customers. So there's been a number of those going on, and at the same time, it's that time of year where we're getting close to in the process of collecting data on a lot of our canola products that are coming off the field, and then pretty close to getting into some soybeans and corn too. So just trying to collect some pre-commercial data in those. So it's been a little bit more challenging this week. Just we had a wet week last week that's caused some challenges. So there's definitely a lot more mud on the boots when you're walking through the field.
Yeah. You definitely you've had some moisture there in Manitoba, which has kind of put a bit of a thorn in an efficient harvest.
Yeah, there's been some damp mornings, damp days here last week, but a lot of really damp mornings. So some later starts and some earlier finishes when you do finally get combining. And we're kind of at that point now where there's some areas that are out making ruts. So we're at that point now, but growers are eager to get the crop off because there's a heck of a crop out there in a lot of areas. So that's definitely been the silver lining to all this. It's been a challenge getting the crop off recently, but there's a really good crop out there to get.
Now, are the decent yields consistent across Manitoba, or are there some areas of Manitoba that are better than others, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, every area has its good and bad. I would say from a consistently challenging area. I know the poor farmers north of Winnipeg, as you get up into the Interlake area, they've been dry right from the get go, and so there's some yields that are a little less than the average just from some drought conditions, and then there's pockets here and there that have had too much moisture that's brought down some of that top end yield. But overall, just the general comments I've been getting from the growers that I work with is just a really, really happy with what's coming off from a cereal crop, whether it's spring wheat, whether it's oats, and even a canola crop that a lot are really happy with the numbers they're getting. Some historic highs on some farms, and some preliminary data on soybeans coming off too that are looking quite promising too. So like I mentioned, growers are excited to get out there, hoping things dry up here this week and then go and get whatever is left out there to get.
Excitement on the grain corn, or optimism on that grain corn crop as people get into that?
Yeah. It's there's actually reports of the odd field coming off just to fill some early contracts, and initial yield results look really promising. But even just monitoring the crop throughout the season, it's been a good season for long season crops. Good growing conditions during pollination. So with that, we see really good grain fill on the corn, and we've had the moisture to fill it. So, we're at a point now where a lot of the corn's at the tail end of filling. We have some mature corn that now is just sitting out in the field drying down. So I think in the next, week or 10 days, I think you'll start to hear more and more reports of some grain corn coming off.
Yeah. Today we have heard such a wide array of conditions. Like, we talked to Ryan Barrett, who's in Prince Edward Island, epically dry on the island in parts of Atlantic Canada. We talked to John Kowalchuk, who's in Trochu, Alberta. Pretty ideal kind of year. But then Glaslyn, Saskatchewan, Daryl Fransoo told us, it's been an okay year, but way too much on the dry side. And again, it just shows you across the Canadian agricultural geography that we've just got a whole bunch of array of conditions, and the challenges the farmer has trying to manage through all those different levels of moisture.
Yeah, well, you said it, and that's just one of the challenges, right? That's out of our control. But the other one is just the markets, and it's that time of year when you have to start thinking about next year, right? So which baskets do you put your eggs? So it kind of just goes back to spreading your risk around and put your eggs in multiple baskets, right? To spread the risk, not only on the weather conditions you might get, drier conditions, wetter conditions, but also the market. So, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Well, that's the old saying, and it is very, very true. And hey, you mentioned, thinking about the year ahead. It's hard to believe too that we're already talking about 2026, but this fall is a good time to think about, hybrid selection, across your different crops.
Absolutely. It's like Christmas time for a lot of us. For growers, right, going to get their crop they put all the hard work into it. Now they get to go and reap the rewards. And it's the same on the seed side too, right? We have our commercial products that we're excited about. We have pre-commercial products we're advancing, and it's like Christmas, right? When this data starts rolling in, where you can start to use some of that data to position it with growers for the next year, right? So to your point, you can never start too early, I think, about, looking ahead to next year, and start asking questions with your local seed dealer on what they're seeing this year and what to look forward to for 2026.
For some of those growers that are in the more wetter areas, and the combine's going to possibly create some ruts, is it more a case of like, hey, we got to get the crop off, we'll deal with the ruts later, or do some people just hold off and maybe things will dry up a little bit and we won't make such a mess of the fields? What typically are you seeing growers to go with?
You know what, Shaun, it's a mixed bag. Like, I think some of them have, how many acres do they have left off to get, right? You got to start at some point, and if it's just a few, then there's growers that are holding off. That might be a reason why some growers might get into their corn first, right, before they really get into beans, is because it might be a challenge knifing those beans off the ground with some of the wet conditions out there. Growers are trying their best to stay out as long as they can without making a mess, because those ruts are something you deal with the next year too, right? And so I've seen a lot of grain trucks parked on the road and grain carts going out and bringing it back to them on the road, and trying to limit the amount of ruts they're doing that way. But at the end of the day, if you got acres to get off and you got soybeans coming in to get off, growers just need to get going in some cases.
Well, Mike, thanks a lot for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Good talking to you.
That was Mike Weir. He is Pioneer Agronomist out of Manitoba. Great chatting with Mike. Hey, If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. We heard from our farmers here today on the show. Now it's your turn, Real Agriculture audience. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or, of course, call that Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. And, of course, today's show was brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Make sure when you're thinking about that hybrid selection for 2026, you think about Pioneer 100 Series. It is the highest yielding Pioneer brand canola hybrids ever. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series. Well, thanks everybody for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio. We'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. Welcome to the bonus, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's show. I gotta apologize. I'm sorry. I haven't been getting to these bonus segments through the week to do the top ag news stories today. I do apologize, but we're here on this Thursday. Better now than never. Exactly. Okay, so lots happening in the world of agriculture, lots to catch up on. Really enjoyed the Farmer Rapid Fire today, had some great guests, great perspectives, and you can really hear that variability of Mother Nature. I can say this, although there has been some drought concerns in parts of Ontario, as we heard today, for the most part, I was in a conversation earlier today with one of the crop protection companies talking about how, yields seem to be kind of above average for a big part of the Western Canadian prairies. So that is definitely a positive. Let's get to the top ag news stories of the day here. The ostriches. Ooh. The Supreme Court of Canada has granted a stay order on Wednesday, delaying the cull of a 400-bird ostrich flock in British Columbia that was infected with highly pathogenic avian influenza in late 2024. That's right. These birds are still alive. This story there is such a prop under it, and it's dividing families. Opinions are dividing friendships. This has become a major issue for so many people across Canada. I was even on RFD TV this morning in the U.S. talking about this ostrich farm and what CFIA is up to. So the Universal Ostrich Farm near Edgewood, BC has attracted major attention in its fight to prevent the euthanization of the birds. Tensions escalated this week when RCMP and Canadian Food Inspection Agency officials arrived at the farm with warrants in preparation to cull the flock. Canada is among many countries that follow World Organization for Animal Health standards, which require quick stamping out or depopulation of animals infected with severe diseases that have no treatment, such as HPAI, to protect the health of other animals and maintain international market access for trade. Now, the key point there, quick. The CFIA, this is my perception. I've heard this from others as well. CFIA has not exactly helped themselves here in the fact they have not been quick. They have been slow. And they have, this is, if they were going to cull the flock, this is something that all of this would not be happening today had they moved actually quickly. This is very much turned into almost like a major property rights issue in terms of ownership and government overreach, and all of those kinds of narratives have really, really picked up and moved forward. Basically because CFIA has been so slow. The farm and its many supporters have argued the birds are no longer infected and should be allowed to live. The CFIA says scientific evidence shows survivors can still spread the virus, and the disease control measures that include depopulation are part of the CFIA's mandate under the Health of Animals Act. So the Supreme Court has granted a stay. We'll have to see. The agency has until October 3rd to file a reply to the farm's application to have the case heard by the highest court, after which the farm owners will have 2 days to respond. This is a story that it's, I don't know how many emails I've gotten on this. Hey, what's going on with this ostrich farm? All that kind of stuff. It is definitely taken up a lot of the water cooler conversations and coffee shop conversations across the country. Canada's agriculture and food sector is facing new trade headwinds. For decades, strong ties with the United States has powered Canadian exports, but recent U.S. tariffs have exposed the risk of relying too heavily on one market. Today, 3/4 of Canada's food and beverage exports head south, making producers vulnerable to shifting U.S. trade policies, according to a new report from Farm Credit Canada. Farm Credit Canada says it's time to diversify. A new FCC analysis highlights a $12 billion opportunity to redirect Canadian exports away from the United States, cutting dependency to about half of current levels. The plan calls for stronger interprovincial trade, making better use of existing free trade deals, and building new international partnerships. Officials caution these changes won't happen overnight. Still, with economic pressures mounting, the push to broaden Canada's customer base is gaining urgency. FCC says the research is meant to spark debate on how to build a more resilient, competitive agri-food sector for the future. And listen, my reaction is, I'm going to have an interview on Friday afternoon with JP Gervais, Chief Economist with Farm Credit Canada. You're going to hear it next week on RealAg Radio. I guess this promise of this, this unutilized opportunity of interprovincial trade, we continue to talk about it, and I just believe it less and less, because I just don't really see, when rubber hits the road, a real desire for some of the provinces to drop some of the things they're trying to protect in the first place, which is why those interprovincial barriers are there. It just seems like one of those things we talk about as this great opportunity. I just believe it less and less as a thing that's actually going to happen, which is really unfortunate. And I don't mean to be cynical about it. That just seems to be more the reality as time marches on. Well, USDA confirmed the challenges facing the crop sector and their implications on the broader farm economy. USDA also confirmed another well-known fact across rural America. Input costs have soared to a record high, and they remain stubbornly sticky. This is a report from Terrain, which is a great group of economists and analysts with Farm Credit. For 2025, USDA now projects total production expenses to reach a nominal record of $467 billion. That's up 31%, or more than $110 billion from the pre-inflationary environment of 2020. Among the major input categories, several are at record high levels, including replacement livestock and poultry animals at $60 billion, labor expenses at $54 billion, interest expenses at $33 billion, maintenance and repairs at $22 billion, taxes at $19 billion, and marketing and storage fees at $13 billion. If we were in a pre-inflationary environment where total cost of production were $678 an acre for corn and $490 an acre for beans, today's record yields would translate into break-evens of $3.63 a bushel and $9.19 a bushel for corn and soybeans, which is below the current season average price projections. The same can be said for wheat, cotton, milo, rice, and peanuts, among other crops. The Ag Outlook Forum is happening in Kansas City right now, and USDA Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins laid out the Trump administration's sweeping vision for farm policy. Rollins said farmers are at the center of the republic and unveiled a 5-point USDA plan. More than $15 billion in immediate relief, new measures to cut soaring input costs, expanded trade access with Japan, Europe, and Asia, major boosts for biofuels, and tighter protections on U.S. farmland and livestock. She highlighted record renewable fuel mandates, tougher scrutiny on foreign land ownership, and new actions against antitrust concentration in seed, fertilizer, and equipment markets. Rollins also flagged the New World screwworm outbreak near Texas as a national security risk. Politically, she drew contrast with the previous administration, pointing to farm trade deficit now topping $30 billion, and urged lower interest rates to ease farm credit. Rollins promised upcoming announcements on the beef sector revitalization, biofuels, and antitrust enforcement, closing with a populist appeal, saying farm security is national security, and now it's time for us to deliver for you. Now, speaking of the U.S. administration, at a White House meeting with Turkey's president, Trump pledged that money collected from tariffs would be distributed to farmers until his trade strategy delivers longer-term gains. He said the approach will bridge producers through current trade disruptions, adding that farmers will ultimately be making a fortune. Speaking of screwworm, as we heard there from the Ag Secretary, a dangerous livestock pest is inching closer to the U.S. border. Mexico has confirmed a new case of New World screwworm that is less than 70 miles from Texas in the state of Nuevo Leon. The parasite, eradicated from the U.S. in 1966, feeds on the living tissue of animals and can cause infection and death. This latest case in an 8-month-old calf is the northernmost detection since Mexico's outbreak began last fall. Bunge is expanding its prairie footprint. The global agribusiness giant has signed a purchase agreement for the Northwest Terminal Grain Elevator near Unity, Saskatchewan. The facility, which did shut its doors to farmers last fall due to financial challenges, is one of the largest in Western Canada, with the 63,000 tons of storage, cleaning and drying capacity, and access to both the CN and the CPKC rail lines. Of course, Bunge is just fresh off of its acquisition of Viterra as well. So Bunge really making a play across the prairies. That was an $8 billion acquisition of Viterra. And also, remember, that deal also requires Bunge to divest 6 other prairie grain elevators near its crush plants in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Other company news, ADM and Alta have signed a deal to form a new joint venture company that will bring together 44 animal feed mills in Canada and the U.S. that currently operate under the Master Feeds, Hubbard Feeds, and ADM banners. The company will be majority owned by Alltech, which with equal representation from each parent on its board of directors. Alltech will contribute 15 feed mills in Canada, 18 in the U.S., while ADM is bringing 11 U.S. feed mills to the deal. That's all the time we have today for the top ag news stories of the day. Encourage you to make sure you listen to RealAg Radio tomorrow, as well as the RealAg Issues panel. Evan Shout from Maverick Ag will join Kelvin Hepner and myself. We'll also have the beef market update with Ann Wasco. If you ever want to be a part of the Farmer Rapid Fire, join the roster of farmers that are sharing information about what's going on in their farm, what's on their minds, good or bad, opportunities, concerns, all those kinds of things. We'd love to always be adding to the number of farmers that are participating on the Thursday show, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. All you have to do is send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. Talk again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.